So a crypto update for the month of December. Mercury is retro right now. There's a couple of shifts coming up in the archetypal energy that we should look at in December. And we're gonna do that in this video. Plus, additionally, we're also going to illuminate an issue that could potentially be of concern around Saylor and MicroStrategy, which could have some really big ramifications for the entire crypto space. So make sure to watch this video until the end and let's go. All right, folks, Mercury is in retrograde motion right now, just since a few days. It happened for Mercury to start to go retrograde in the sign of Sagittarius. If you have had any plans, future plans, kind of big plans, travel plans, anything of the sort where you're looking into the future and far ahead, which is Sagittarius, that is very likely in these days to have already had to undergo some readjustments. Basically, Mercury going retrograde means you're going to be rethinking, thinking backwards, thinking internally, returning, with your thought processes around these topics that are about the big picture and, travel and global diplomacy if you're involved in that. If not, maybe you're just your own kind of how you're planning your own relationships, depending on where it falls in your chart, obviously. But now in the crypto space, the incident of this transit, it pretty much coincided very immediately with a minor correction. So we had a drawback here. This was on November 5th, 25th, right? 25th, 26th. And it pretty much on that day, we had a correction that, is already again, it's already back up again, but that correction was quite notable. One of my subscribers, Anna, thanks for pointing this out, this correlation. It definitely warrants deeper investigation to see if that's the historical magnitude across many cycles. But in this particular cycle, it is very clear what's happening there, because obviously people are readjusting. As this is in Sagittarius, they are readjusting their next year plans, right? And their future portfolios, the portfolios that they're set up for the next year. And when you think that happens on a larger institutional scale as well, then you can see how that leads to these fluctuations and also definitely to some leverage being flushed out of the system. But this has already been back up. It's already back up again where it was. It doesn't look like there's going to be a larger correction here to do around this Mercury retrograde. This was just like a small fluctuation, as it seems like now. And what else is going to happen here in this? What are the next phases in this Mercury retrograde? So there is one important phase coming up, which is December 5th. This is very important because here the Mercury is going to be Kazemi, which is a position where the Mercury is directly in the sun, directly in the heart of the sun. And when that happens, this is actually, special here, because you have, at the same time, you have Jupiter and Saturn here in this configuration, right? So these are the two social planets. They're currently in a square. They're going towards a square. I said this previously in some videos that typically, oftentimes you have signs of recession. They're falling on the Jupiter-Saturn square, but it's not so direct and one-to-one, because obviously that would be too easy, right? That would be too easy. But you always have significant restructuring of the economies, of the global economy at the Jupiter-Saturn square, which is what's happening now as well. But this time, right? It doesn't, the recession is still in the books for next year, but there is, we're on this kind of long cycle upwards. The S&P 500 and real estate markets and so on are all sort of on their upward leg of the larger cycles that they're in right now. So that this restructuring, even though it's significant, it's not directly right now showing itself as a recession. But now back to here, the Mercury position where it's going to be in this T square with Saturn and Jupiter. This happening December 5th. So here as Mercury enters into the heart of the sun, you typically have for this day some kind of eureka moments, right? Some kind of real kind of realizations and insights. People go like, oh yeah, I got it. Now I understand what the purpose of this Mercury retrograde is, basically, right? Mercury retrograde starts and you start to think backwards, wherever, the case may be in your own chart. It depends on where Mercury falls in your own chart. And then around that time, which in this case is going to be December 5th, happens the realization, okay, now I know what I need to change, right? So a lot of people are going to be changing their plans. And especially since you saw it fell into the Jupiter-Saturn square, this can be this can have quite significant economic ramifications. I would expect some big moves on that day or around that day, right? Around the day before, the day after. Right now, upward or downward, I can't tell you, right? I can't tell you because there's too many other factors for that. But for people who are traders, this is already important information. This is already insightful to know that there's going to be a big movement happening, right? But now let's go back to the Mercury retrograde. We're moving after this. We're moving into December. We're going into December, and then we're stationing December 14th. You see here, December 14th. We're stationing, and then gradually, and then December 17th, by 17th, it starts to move forward again. And this forward motion, it comes out of a trine with Mars. There's going to be a lot of energy. So at the end of this Mercury retrograde, December 17th, people are going to be completely readjusted. They're going to be completely set up with their big plans and their next year plans. And they're going to be super strong energy forward to move forward, right, into the next year, basically. Right? And you're going to see a lot of upward motion. You're going to see a lot of action happening starting from December 17th going into Christmas and the New Year, right? Now, okay, let's look at this is just for Mercury right now. Where do we, we need to look at other factors still to understand if the month coming up is generally positive or negative for crypto, right? So one thing that's really important is we have around the time when this focus, the center point of the Mercury retrograde happens, just a couple of days later, on December 7th, we have Venus entering into Aquarius. You see here? Venus enters into Aquarius. So Aquarius, Aquarius is the sign of crypto, right? Is the sign of new technologies. I've shown this many times. This is my thesis. I've shown this many times. Uranus and Aquarius rules crypto, right? And Pluto just entered there, and Venus is entering too now, and you're going to have the conjunction here in the first degree in December 7th. So this looks for me like a clear marker of, starting from this time, you're going to have some very good days for making money with crypto, Venus going into Aquarius, right? Pluto is big money. Pluto is like big power, big powers, big money. So this looks to me very clear like we're going to have some signs of big new money moving into crypto space, right? So we're going to have some announcements of new ETF funds and, maybe new state actors that are going to be announced of new money coming into big money, new big money coming into the crypto space. And then after that, we're going to have Venus in there for all the time, basically until in the new year, right? So it's a pretty good phase. Like this is generally a very good phase for crypto. Better, the bulls are going to be very happy during this time, December all the way to January, right? Now, in the same time, it's a multi-layered analysis. There's complex, there's a lot of different things happening, right? We can't just isolate one thing and forget about everything else. At the same time, we have Mars starting to go retro as well. So Mars goes retro even, sort of around the same time, in December 7th, just when Venus enters into Aquarius, at the same time, Mars starts to go retrograde. Mars is in Leo right now, right? So this is kind of the conspicuous investment, right? The very flamboyant investments, which is Mars in Leo. And they are going to go retro, right? They're going to go, basically, you will have to revisit, and there will be some flamboyant and speculative investors that will have falls, very visible falls, right? Very visible, losing money, very large, very big time, right? Now, who could that be? Maybe that's the bears, right? Maybe that's the bears who have a lot of shorts set up, and the shorts are going to be flushed out, right? This is possible, and that's going to be very public and very visible, right? Because exactly at the same time, Venus goes into Aquarius, right? Which is very positive, very bullish for crypto. The bulls generally are going to have the upper hand in this time. So I'm seeing this Mars here going retro as the bears taking the hit, right? So with maybe some very public and visible ways. Now this is in December. All of this is starts December 7th as well. December 7th, December 8th, right? So again, and we said shortly afterward, Mercury goes forward as well, and then it's just green light. There's only one thing here. There's one thing, and I've said this many times, but there's one thing that can just kind of, mess up the party, be like the party pooper here, right? That there's one thing, which is the opposition that we have all this time already, but just kind of constellating back into action with Mars and Pluto, which is geopolitical tensions, geopolitical escalation, right? This is the only thing that can stop crypto right now. Like, this is the only thing, right? This is the only thing that is significant, that looks significantly bad, right? And what's that? I mean, we already saw in the first leg, when this constellated first, we had exactly when this constellated. I've been, talking about this for months before. I've told people, I've been made specific videos on this and whatnot. So when this first started in the beginning of November, when it's just started to come in, we had the escalation in Russia, right? With Ukraine getting ATACMS and the Russians just upping the ante and just going a little bit crazy with nuclear threats, right? And all of that. So that happened in the beginning of November, just with that constellation coming in. And now, as we're going back into this, it went a little bit out of aspect, but then it comes back into aspect again. So high tension going into Christmas. Right? Christmas and New Year's is going to be like at high, very, very high escalation danger, right? Very high escalation danger, risk of escalation geopolitically on various fronts. Middle East, Russia, right? And elsewhere, and East Asia too. So, is it going to lead to a crash of the markets? It has certainly previously. Maybe the markets are so strong right now that even this kind of geopolitical escalation is priced in, right? Definitely, I mean, World War III is never going to be priced in, but if it stays on the level of the kind of predictable escalations, because right now it looks like the market is not, responding very strongly to the escalations that are going on, right? So then that could be the case. But definitely around this time, around New Year's, you're going to see some major escalations, right? So this could be potentially another point where we could have some correction being triggered, right? Now, obviously, everybody's want to see when is going to be the next big correction, or is it going to just keep moving on right now? And there is going to be obviously a big correction, always, as in every bull market, and trying to time those over the next 8 months, over the next, whatever the case may be, 10 months, is going to be extremely important, and is going to be the major alpha that you can have. Right? We're going to keep doing that and looking at the archetypal lens to understand what's going on in collective consciousness, and therefore what's going on in the markets. So make sure to subscribe to this channel if you haven't done so yet, and hit the notification bell as well, so you get all the videos. There's not just market videos here and crypto videos. I also give you content for, to elevate your spiritual awareness and awakening, and to understand what's going on geopolitically. But all of that is important too, right? It's not just about the money and just about the market. So you are very welcome on this journey. Now let's go back into the charts. So we saw this is happening. Okay, this is actually December. I'm going to still, at the end of this video, I'm going to give you a little preview of what's happening in 2025, right? In 2025, something very important that a lot of people are thinking about right now for that might be very significant for crypto. But before that, let's talk about Michael Saylor. So Michael Saylor, he is, as you surely know, he's probably the most influential person in crypto right now, right? His company is just buying up all the Bitcoin. It's just literally buying all the Bitcoin, right? I don't know how much he's bought. He has purchased something like 380,000 Bitcoin at an average price of 55K, I think, something like that. And he keeps buying, right? He keeps buying his company, MicroStrategy. He's the largest buyer. He's kind of single-handedly been pushing up this current rally. Of course, him and the ETFs, right? But he's a single largest individual company buyer by far. By far, it's not even close, right? Nothing else even comes close. And that being the case, obviously, what happens to him and what happens to MicroStrategy is very significant for the crypto space, right? So we're going to look at his chart, and there's some very, very, very concerning things happening there. Very concerning things, right? Which you have to be aware of, and I'm going to make you aware of them. But before that, just to understand, for the background, if you follow the space, you will know this. I'm just going to still give the background. He's basically set up with MicroStrategy, a company where he's discovered some type of infinite money loop, because he is selling debt, basically. He's developed all these other instruments, all these other types of instruments that he can sell. And the one that is very, very important there is options and debt. He's selling debt to companies and to investors that cannot invest into Bitcoin or crypto, right? But they can invest into debt. They can buy up the debt, right? So the fixed income funds and funds that have certain types of regulatory restrictions, they cannot do this, they cannot do that, but they can buy debt, right? So he's selling them debt in his from his company, and then he's allowing those companies to later convert that debt into MicroStrategy equity, right? And he's using the money that's getting from those folks to buy all the Bitcoin in the world, right? Like all the Bitcoin that he can get. So even more than being, far more than even than is being minted right now, right? He's just buying up everything that, not just what comes out, but like from everybody who's leaving the market, right? So now, why is that an issue? Well, it's an issue. It's a very smart thing, but it's very risky. It's extremely risky. It's extremely risky. Why? Because he's basically exploiting a regulatory loophole. He's making money because the regulatory system does not allow those fixed income funds to directly buy crypto. Otherwise, they don't need Michael Saylor. They just go buy Bitcoin, right? They need him because they're not allowed to, right? So he's exploiting this loophole and he's making money this way. Now, why is this risky? I'm not going to go into the details of the technical financial sides of where exactly the risks lie, but it is risky, and we can see that when we look at his chart, right? So I'm going to show you his personal chart, his personal, right? His birth chart, basically, right? So in his birth chart, you can already see this, and it's interesting. For him, we have an actual time. We have a time and a place and everything, right? Somehow it's been leaked, it's online, it's known, right? Very interesting, very good for the crypto space. So he has you see here, first of all, you see here the sun with, the sun in the 12th in Aquarius, right? The innovative kind of eccentric who's doing things from behind the scenes, right? He's kind of doing things behind the scenes. He's making backdoor deals. And then he's got what? This is in a T-square with Jupiter and Neptune. You see this here, Jupiter-Neptune direct opposition. So Jupiter-Neptune opposition, these people, so Jupiter-Neptune is extreme speculation, right? It could be like the highest level of visionary sixth sense about what's going to happen, about the future, but also it's typically extreme levels of speculation, which often lead in delusion, right? Delusional kind of plays that are completely misreading the market and so on, or misreading reality, right? It's very difficult to handle this energy in a very, very evolved way. And this energy, right, is about his personality, who he is. His sun is in this. His sun is tied into this T square, right? So he's like this, eccentric speculator, right? Eccentric speculator who might, who has in his chart to be able to be extremely prescient, like be like this, have this extreme, foresight, but also possibly potentially of being extremely wrong, right? Extremely wrong, right? With his foresight and kind of misreading completely the situation. He has this potential, right? Now, when you look at his chart more, like I always like to look at there's more stuff here with the Pluto Uranus. He's going to be like this revolutionary who changes his partner's life, right? He lives the people that partner with him. But then look at this. Look at the ascendant. I just highlighted one thing which is really important because it tells you how accurate the astrology is. It's insane. If you haven't looked at this yet before, if all you know is just to look at the cycles and so on, if you haven't looked at this deep lens and deep level that I share with you here, you will be shocked and surprised at the same time. But this is how accurate the cosmic script is. The cosmic script is there to really show what everybody's place is in the game and in the story. He's got here on his ascendant, he's got a couple of asteroids which say who he is, right? He's got Forbes, Phaeton, Morpheus, and Klondike. These are all, like, it's not, these are all exactly on his ascendant. These are all here, right? They're all here. Forbes, Phaeton, Morpheus, Klondike. There's no space, so it looks like they're down, but they're not. They're all here with Saturn together, right? Saturn with these four forces. What are they? Forbes, rich people. The richest people in the world is Forbes, right? Morpheus. What is Morpheus? Morpheus is dreams, the Lord of dreams, right? Klondike. What is Klondike? Klondike, it was this city in Yukon. It's sorry, in Canada, Alaska, basically, up there in Alaska, right? Canada. It's like in Canada. But this was a gold rush city. This was a massive gold rush city. Like, there was Klondike gold rush is super famous. Everybody went there and tried to get rich. A lot of people died, and it was like this cutthroat, ruthless competition for the gold. And some got extremely rich, but a lot of people died, right? In this process. Like, no rules, kind of fight for the gold. Klondike, gold rush, right? So Morpheus, Lord of Dreams, Forbes, right? Rich people, the richest people in the world, Klondike. So he's selling the dream to the richest people in the world of a gold rush. That's written in his chart, right? So I'm telling you, astrology is like far deeper and more accurate than most people could even imagine, right? 99.9% of astrologers never look this deep. They never look this deep. They only look at the Mars in aspect to this and so on and so forth. They only look at the general level. They don't go this specific, right? So it's this specific. But then there is something else here. There's something else which is worrisome. Phaeton. Phaeton is here too. Phaeton is what? Phaeton stands for an attempt which leads to a very public defeat, right? Or a very, very public failure. Now, it doesn't mean necessarily every time Phaeton is somewhere it's going to be failure, because it's also like a process that could be necessary for your spiritual evolution and your spiritual development. This is when we understand the chart holistically. There isn't any planet or asteroid that's just bad, that doesn't exist, right? There's always a spiritual task around it. Maybe that's necessary for you. But here, we're going to take a different perspective. We're looking at it, from a market perspective, not just from the perspective of his spiritual development. It may be that he has to have a big public failure to be spiritually more evolved, right? Great, wonderful. But does that mean you want to invest in MicroStrategy to support his spiritual development? Not necessarily, right? So you have to kind of differentiate a little bit the perspectives here. So this is written in his chart too, right? This is written in his chart too. Now, this is his general fate, his general destiny. This is not going to necessarily happen now or next year or whatever. This is his general destiny, right? This is the chart. Your chart is for your whole life, right? But then there's a couple of things that are important for right now, okay? And this is what? This is when we look at his chart into his current transits. There's some transits here that I mentioned this in previous videos, but it's important to point it out again. So in his current transit, you got here in December, you got transiting Saturn going against his Uranus. Okay, this means that laws, typically this means like there are certain limitations introduced which limit my freedom. And typically this is around laws or regulations or structures or some type of official structures are introduced which are limiting me. And then it goes on, and then you have the same Saturn by January, it goes into opposition to his Pluto, right? So Saturn opposite Pluto is a very difficult time in life, right? It's a time where you kind of work against forces that you don't fully understand, that are larger than you, and that may want to bring you down in some ways, right? That may want to bring you down. So you have both of these things happening in his chart. Now, at the same time, you also have some positive things happening, right? I'm not saying he has, because 25 looks pretty good for him afterward, when he has here, is going to have the Jupiter is moving, and then Jupiter is coming into a nice trine here with his sun. Okay, here you see this. Okay, this is in 25. So there's some counteracting positive energies here too. Definitely some counteracting positive energies in his chart, in his progressions too. I'm not going to go there. But nonetheless, MicroStrategy is going to face some serious hurdles. I looked at his personal chart here, but he is MicroStrategy, right? It's going to face some serious issues in the coming time. We can only hope that the crypto space is strong enough to not be too much impacted by whatever happens there. But I wouldn't necessarily personally be exposed to MSTR, right? So that's the perspective on Michael Saylor and MicroStrategy. Now, there's one last thing that I wanted to share with you about 2025, which is this last thing that we are going to look at in this video, and this is the news. The question whether Trump inauguration is going to be good for crypto or not, right? So a lot of people are saying Trump is inaugurated, it's going to be sell the news event, right? It's going to be like, okay, now he's there, now, okay, let's now sell, right? This is going to happen. This happens oftentimes when people are anticipating a good event, right? A good event. So in this case, we have just shortly after the inauguration, so in January, right? He's inaugurated in January, but then shortly after, starting from January 20th, actually, right? Sun goes into Aquarius, right? And then shortly after, not Neptune, but Mercury, right? But Mercury, I'm getting too many planets here garbled, but Mercury goes also into Aquarius, and then they're both going through Aquarius. This is actually, obviously, you can say they're every February there, but this is also why Februarys are always good for crypto. February is, I think, the best month, the third best month or second best month, third best month every year, right? For crypto, except if there are very, very exceptional circumstances. And this year is not going to be, I don't believe that it's going to be different based on what I'm seeing here. That Uranus is also getting a couple of very good aspects throughout February, right? And also the geopolitical risk is also is not active anymore that we talked about. So it's either happening now before Christmas, or if it's not, if it's manageable, the geopolitical risk, then after that, we're kind of out of the woods, and we have kind of a longer stretch of where it can just go up, right? So that's that. Now, let me know in the comments how you feel about this, where you have your questions and your insights. Your comments also help boost the content. So make sure to share your insights, share your questions, your perspectives, your insights. Like the video as well if you haven't done so yet. Subscribe to this channel if you want to look at your own cycles to strategize your personal and financial development, and also work on your spiritual alignment with the cycles, because it's always holistic. We can do that. You can find the links below to how to work with me. And until the next time in the next video, I wish you all the best. Be well and be blessed.